What is going on, guys? It is me, DevilNeverCry, and I'm back again with some more DMC5 coverage. Now, this is going to be a discussion video, I guess, in terms of it being an information roundup. There's lots and lots of details that have come out about DMC5 in the past couple of days, and instead of, cutting them up into smaller videos, I decided to just discuss them all in one sort of video here. So, and the reason for that is because there's so many new little things that we know that I don't think warrant their own video. Along with that, there have been quite a lot of interviews, so it will kind of be redundant in terms of covering each and every one, because a lot of interviewers ask the same amount of questions, or, on the odd chance they decide to ask something that's rather interesting, they often get no comment or no answer. So, without further ado, let's just dive right in. So the first interview I want to discuss is one that was done by Game Informer, and obviously you've got the title here. He discusses, Ninja Theory, Nico, the difference between Dante and Nero, blah blah blah. But there's a couple questions I want to focus on in particular, because they're quite interesting. So if we scroll down here, and they ask about Dante, right? They want to see if he's going to be similar at all to his DMC3 iteration, or if he's going to be more like 4. And you'll notice here that Itsuno directly states, in terms of whether he'll be more like his DMC3 or 4 iteration, we'll have to say more like DMC3. Now this is rather interesting because people want to know how exactly Dante is going to play. What they're going to do with the Dante from DMC4, considering he was very complex. How are they going to open him up? Are they going to make him more accessible? Are they going to dumb down his gameplay? Or, are they going to meld and merge certain styles into his base moveset? What are they going to do? Well, with this comment here, it seems that maybe we won't have on-the-fly style switching, and maybe they'll go back to more of a DMC3 approach where you have to pick your loadout, which is a rather interesting approach. I guess that means that there's going to be a lot of weapons similar to DMC3 or even more, or maybe there's going to be a multitude of styles that won't fit on the controller. It's an interesting choice, but Itsuno himself and the team have to balance the game so that it's not too hard, it's not too easy, and at the same time they want to make it so that it's not too complex. But then again, they don't want to make it too they don't want to dumb it down and reduce that skill ceiling, because obviously the fans play the series not just for the awesome content, but because it's a series that you can dive into, and the time you put in is the time you get out. So the fact that they've gone for this choice, potentially, this is speculation at the moment, we don't know, is rather interesting. Again, another good question immediately after, this time asking about the different protagonists and how the game is going to be structured. Do you choose a character, or is each mission tailored to a specific character like DMC4? Obviously, again, they haven't announced any details, they say, but they do go on record to say there's going to be several different ways you can approach them, which is rather interesting. So a lot of people sort of speculate that the characters' missions will sort of cross over in the story. There'll be nexus points where the characters will meet and they split up. It's sort of like Resident Evil 6. We don't know how the mission structure is going to play out. I mean, missions are definitely back. The whole thing of choosing your character before a mission is rather interesting, considering, there's going to be story-specific cutscenes and stuff, so how's that going to pan out? Who knows? Now, he goes on to discuss the Devil Breaker, ammunition-based system. It's an RNG-based system, I believe. And it's a resource management system. I believe it's randomized, or maybe they're set. The ammunition that you pick up is set in certain difficulties and missions. But people don't seem to like the fact that if you want to use another Devil Breaker, you have to break the one you currently have just to get to the other one. And if the one you want to swap to is like 2 Devil Breakers away, you have to break 2 in a row. And it's resource management. It's interesting, but at the same time, it's like, why do I have to give up these things just to get to something I want to use? People seem to think it's limiting, and a lot of people have gone on record on Twitter to tweet Matt, Okabe, and Itsuno, the top dogs working on DMC5. But from what they've said, it's here to stay, apparently. And it's I believe Itsuno goes on to talk about how in JRPGs he'd often, sorry as I go on Twitter here, he'd often like hoard elixirs. He'd never use them, so he'd finish a game with like 99 elixirs. But he designed DMC5 with that in mind, where they want the player to use all of their Devil Breakers. They want them to get to that boss and just barely beat the boss. But in doing so, they've used all they can. So that's the whole Devil Breaker system in mind here. I want to quickly touch on the UI of the game, the user interface. So someone tweeted Matt Walker about this, asking about, hey guys, we've got it right here. In fact, do you know if the health bar is final? Will there be improvements? At this point, it's final. People don't like the broken glass motif. If you see here, it takes up a large amount of the screen on each corner here, and I can understand why, because the aesthetic isn't for everybody, and it does take a large amount of the screen up, but that's not changing. That's final. I'm willing to bet, however, that Dante and whoever the third character is will have their own different HUD, because as you can see here, this is for this glass here seems to fit the exceed bar that they've got here, and you got the broken glass motif. I'm not exactly sure why. Maybe the broken glass motif is universal, because at the end of the demo mission, everything was displayed in broken glass, and you know this if you've played the DMC series. Whenever you get to the end of a mission, the screen cracks as gunshots hit the freeze frame, and then it shatters, and then you've got the mission results screen. So maybe this broken glass is here to stay permanently, but at the moment we're unsure. Moving on though, they really get into it here. As you can see, he's talking about the 99 elixirs. If you want to see this for yourself, I'll link this down below for you. But yeah, there's more to cover here. They talk about the camera. The camera's obviously more dynamic. People were kind of surprised at them singing the praises of Ninja Theory and DMC. And there's certain things that obviously DMC5 has taken from DMC. A lot of the good aspects, obviously. But you got to realize here that Itsuno himself, the head honcho director of DMC5, isn't going to shit talk Ninja Theory, especially considering they worked together for years. It's PR 101, public relations. It's like when you're in a big position and your words mean a lot, you're not exactly going to chat shit about another company. It's especially considering how the culture is in Japan, where it's all about respect. He's not going to go on record to say like these guys were complete fucking asses, blah blah blah. But taking that out of mind, even if he did enjoy working with Ninja Theory, so what? I'm sure Ninja Theory learned a lot more than Itsuno did. But again, as you can see in DMC5, Itsuno did learn a few things from Ninja Theory. And then, they're asked about whether they'd be willing to work with DMC, on a sequel to DMC, or even with Ninja Theory again, and they'd be like, yeah, sure, but again, Ninja Theory was bought out by Microsoft, so how that's going to happen, who knows. Moving on, Nico and her the Goldstein family here. So it seems like Nell, obviously, she's been acknowledged as being a part of the lore, but to what extent, we don't know, and that's coming in another interview that I'm going to switch to in a bit. But again, he goes on to say, just to reconfirm that, you know, it's her grandmother who created Ebony and Ivory, just for those of you who were unsure. But here's the interesting thing here, right? So they ask about Nico, and they ask about creating a playable female character, like we saw in DMC4 Special Edition. Now, for those of you who don't know, like Lady and Trish were added in on a shoestring budget, like very last minute. Like most of the budget went to Virgil, and you can see that because he's a fleshed out character in 4 Special Edition. Lady and Trish are pretty bare bones. They reused a lot of animations. Nothing particularly crazy. So that they're asking, you know, they want a playable character from the ground up. But obviously, as soon as, like, you know, he's just creating the game. He doesn't take specific things into consideration like that. But he goes on to say, you know, Nico was always someone who wanted to be this weapons artist. You know, other than that, we technically haven't announced any details on this third character yet. So we haven't announced whether it's a man or a woman. Now, obviously, considering V is on the cover of the game, and certain leaks, you know, not just the big leak that happened before, but like leak that happened months back, like just before E3, where we got like an accurate description of the game. You know, V was touted as a playable character. Now, he's not, because they haven't actually said anything, and he doesn't want to make it obvious, even though it kind of already is at this point. You know, they haven't said whether it's a man or a woman, so. And this ties into the next question they ask here. So they ask, is there any chance we might see either Lady or Trish in DMC5? And obviously it's Suno's just like, you know, put it this way, if you wait a little longer you'll find out. Clearly referencing to TGS, which is less than a month away at this point, guys. I'd just like to let you know. The wait between E3 and Gamescom is twice the gap between Gamescom and TGS, so we don't have long to wait, guys. Like three and a bit weeks. So, no doubt, Trish and Lady are in DMC5. If you saw the leak or the leak discussion video I did, and you know you want to kind of get a preemptive answer to this question, go check that out, or go find the leak. Or even, you know, there's lots of people who are discussing the leak. So, you know, hop into any DMC forum and you'll see it. But what if Trish or Lady are going to be playable in DMC5? You know, it would be that would mean that V is a massive red herring, but it's definitely plausible. Like, they could build on what they got from DMC4 SE and just, you know, build up on it and flesh the character out. We're unsure. Like, having a character like Lady be 100% playable would be insane, considering she's like gun only. Would it make sense in the lore of the story? Kind of. I mean, she's human after all, so she can't really take much damage. But, you know, she's capable of stomping people's asses completely, so who knows? Now, that's the end of that interview. There's a few more questions I obviously didn't cover. Or even the ones I did, I sort of summarized them for you, because, you know, I don't want to be sitting here reading things word for word, because that's not quality content, you know, if you ask me. Anybody could do that. You know, even though, you know, if I were doing that, why would you want to watch the video when you can go and read it for yourself? Anyway, I'll link to this down below. We'll move on to another interview. This one was done by, I believe, Kidius here. He's part of the pretty prominent Resident Evil modding board, and obviously, you know, Resident Evil, DMC, you know, they're pretty closely tied series, so it would make sense. but he briefly got to discuss things with them. And there's a couple questions here I want to pick out in particular here. They discuss the fact that DMC, they never used to be based off real life locations. Like Malay Island, obviously fictional. The city in the anime, fictional. Even DMC2, that was it Doomery Island? You know, obviously complete nonsense. Even we don't know what city DMC3 was set in, like where Dante set up shop, or where the Temeniguru Tower sprouted up. We don't know. And DMC4, you know, Fortuna, it's a fantasy medieval town. Like nothing was based off a real world location. But if you look at the DMC5 content, you'll clearly see like references, like direct references to this being set somewhere in the UK. You know, big up the fam in the UK. You know, no, obviously, but you know, Redgrave City here clearly resembles London. Now, for those of you who don't know, obviously here in the UK, especially in London, you got the big red buses, as well as, you know, we've got, especially central London, a lot of cobblestone paths, as well as the big building with the screens. That's a location in London as well. It's I believe Leicester Square, near that area. So they clearly ask, and they're like, yo, like what's up with this? And you know, Matt Walker obviously is like, you got a good eye for spotting this, but we can't say anything about it at this time, which is interesting because maybe the location plays into it quite a bit. Maybe that plays into who V is, where he's from. We don't know, but considering that they don't want to say anything about it, there must be something more to it. And then they continue on to ask, and I want to highlight this question here, question 22. You know, Nico Goldstein seems to be related to Nell. Not a question, a statement. Matt's obviously that's right. Then they ask, you know, she is the one who made, not even ask, kind of state, you know, she's the one who made Ebony and Ivory, but does this mean that she'll have a role in the story? Nell, obviously, the grandmother. And Matt's obviously, you know, not PR talk. It is PR talk pretty much. He's just like, look, no comment. You know, I'm assuming because, you know, he cannot neither confirm or deny, because then that clearly gives something away. Now, not all of these questions are going to be asked, obviously, but we'll continue. Again, you know, the person who asked this obviously knows about DMC, because they go on to things that are, you know, about the novel, you know, with Nell, and now with asking about the alias Tony Redgrave, and, you know, DMC5 taking place in Redgrave City. Obviously, you know, just so you know, Redgrave City isn't a city anywhere in the UK. Just put that out there before anybody, you know, is wondering. Does Dante have a connection to the city, or is it a clever joke and reference? Matt's obviously like, actually both. But he doesn't say anything other than that. Now, that's rather interesting. Obviously it's a reference because the dev team know about Tony Redgrave. You know, I'm assuming obviously when they model Ebony and Ivory in-game, they have to make sure the guns say for Tony Redgrave. Not only that, but a lot of the people that worked on DMC5 are people who worked on all the other games around the time the novels came out, so they know about Tony Redgrave. But this whole idea of Dante having some sort of special connection to this city, and I also want to touch upon something Nero states during the gameplay in the demo, where he's like, you know, what is so special about this city? He's like, why here of all places? And then obviously with Matt here saying that there's a connection. It's interesting. Maybe this is the town or city that Dante grew up in, potentially. Maybe it's the city where Eva and Sparda are buried. We don't know. You know, but there's a reason why it means something to Dante. Maybe it's where Nero's mother is from. The city's connected to him in some sort of way, because otherwise they would have picked anywhere else to sprout this massive demon tree. But yeah, that's my theory. It's just speculation. I think it has something to do with the Sparta bloodline. Let me know what you guys think. But yeah, moving on, we get one kind of light-hearted question here, obviously asking, Dante always gets interrupted whenever he's trying to be peaceful. Is this going to be the game where he finally gets to just chill out, eat his pizza without any interruptions? Kind of comical. But they obviously don't say anything. They're just like, what, we'll find out. Because they don't want to be spoiling anything, obviously. But, for those of you who don't know, like, DMC 1, Dante's just chilling in his office when Trish comes in, and that kicks that off. DMC 2, we're not going to talk about. DMC 3, Dante comes out just after having a shower. He's chilling out, just wants to relax, eat some pizza. Arkham rolls in, destroys everything for him. DMC 4, he's there sitting, he's just trying to read his magazine and eat his pizza, but Trish and Lady, basically harass him into checking out what's going on at Fortuna. So, hopefully Dante gets the respite he so finally deserves. If he doesn't, probably because he'll end up dead. Or something like that, stuck in hell yet again. We don't know. But that's it for the interviews that I want to discuss. I'll link to both of these so you guys can see. And now we can move on to sort of little gameplay tidbits. Now, yesterday's video where I was discussing the Blue Rose, and I was talking about the charge shots. For those of you who don't know, you can. There's a taunt animation which charges up shots for you. I'm not sure what letter it is. I'm assuming it's either an A or an S, or even an SS. But there's a cool little animation that's a throwback to DMC4 cutscene where what was it? Where he encounters Dante first mission, and he throws up the bullets and reloads them mid-air. All sorts of terrible memes here. Let me see if I can. Here we go. So here's a GIF of it, and as you can see, he goes from 1 all the way to max, which is 3. So that's something that's pretty cool. It's a flair that you'd expect from Itsuno and DMC5. The fact that taunts like that can actually integrated very well into the gameplay. Again, you got mid-air taunts here, and this does fill your exceed bar. These are things I noticed before, but again, I was hoping some information would build up so I could address it all in one big mega video. Here's obviously the Red Queen taunt that we saw in DMC4. That is confirmed to also fill your exceed bar, in case you didn't know. You have another taunt here where he puts his hood on, and he stands there arms folded, and the hood is confirmed to stay up during gameplay as well. I'm not exactly sure what causes it to fall back down, but it is 100% confirmed that it stays up after this. The continuation of the GIF essentially is him dodging and attacking, but the hood stays up. So that's how I know, if you're asking. This was an image that was passed around the Discord a couple hours ago. As you can see here, this is something else they have taken from DMC DevilNeverCry. You now get bonus orbs for essentially doing all sorts of interesting things during combat. So, plus 100 here for an air taunt, max fatality victory, so they took no damage, for triple enemy step, for using the exceed, I'm assuming, deflecting something probably with the Gerbera arm. But the interesting thing here is that this breakdown has been lifted essentially straight from DMC DevilNeverCry, but it's a way to encourage players to use high levels skills and abilities, high level gameplay, for a better rank. Before there was no sort of bonus to using the jump cancel system, like in game, should I say. Like, you don't get extra orbs or anything. Obviously, you get extra style points, but in terms of like orbs or like proud souls or whatever, no, not at all. So this makes me question, you know, for Dante's gameplay, are you gonna get like extra orbs for like, you know, guard flying, you know, for like, what's the other word? What's the other technique? Oh, I'm blanking here. But you know what I mean, like guard flying. Oh, what was the name of the rave? Fuck, I can't remember. But you know, you get what I mean. Like, are they gonna like acknowledge it in game and be like, oh, hey, you did all this cool shit here. Why don't we reward you with a bunch of red orbs? Which obviously they've started doing that here for Nero, and as you can see here, there is a bar that slides down, so there's a lot more. There's a lot more. I also want to say there's been a change to the combat rank system, so now you're graded individually on each combat scenario, just like Bayonetta. However, that also means that there'll likely be hidden encounters you have to find if you want that S rank, because in Bayonetta you had to like backtrack, you have to like do the ones in the secret missions as well. Like, it's ridiculously annoying because you have to go and fight every encounter, which involves backtracking a lot or doing like silly secret missions with ridiculous stipulations. So that's a change. That's a big change. You're now graded on each individual combat encounter. But you know, it's an interesting change, you know. Hopefully that's all they take from Bayonetta. Hopefully they don't take any of the gimmicky missions or anything like that. Again, shout out to DMC5 Info. They're a massive Twitter account here. If I don't find it in the Discord, I'll often end up finding it whilst I'm scrolling through Twitter. Or, you know, at that point, even though the Discord, a lot of this is often posted. But yeah, it's rather interesting. There was an image. God damn it! There was an image posted in the Discord that shows Dante from DMC2 doing the exact same pose, and it looks like he's preparing for a stinger, but we don't know. I'm fairly certain that the image hasn't been posted on here, because this was posted not long ago in the Discord. But again, there's something else I want to talk about here. So for those of you who haven't seen this screen, this is a screen this is a short little cutscene you get when you approach the van and you enter, obviously. So Nico acts as your merchant, and she obviously takes the arm and slams it down on the table here. One thing I want to discuss though is the divinity statue here, the goddess of time statue that's in the corner here on the right. That's rather interesting, because I'm assuming that's how Nero buys like blue orbs or purple orbs, you know, if DT does come back. I'm assuming it will, because obviously Nico's not going to have access to that shit. It's like, well, how the fuck did you get your hands on that? So I'm assuming for all the magical enhancements you have to talk to the mini statue of time here, and it is mini because the other ones were like massive, absolutely massive. Let me see here. Motherfucker. My hands are cold, so they're stiff. Yeah. Okay, so that's not from DMC3, but this one's from DMC4. You bastard, open up. That's the lion-faced statue. You can see it here as well. You can see it here in DMC1 as well. So that has returned, which is pretty cool. Obviously, it's got a different look as they usually do. But yeah, you get a look here at Nico, obviously, with the butterfly tat on her lower back and all the tats on her arms. People have been saying lots and lots of lewd things about her, might I add, you know. I'm just gonna say, you know. But yeah, that's the taunt that I was discussing earlier. And that's a lot. That's pretty much it. There's not much else, to be honest. I think I've covered all I wanted to cover. Obviously memes. But yeah, Dante's coming soon. TGS, not that far away. People have noted that Dante has lost the leather chaps, traded them in for leather trousers. People wondering if there's a Square Enix crossover or collaboration here because of all the goddamn belts that Tetsuya Nomura is known for. Like 4 different belts on his boots, it looks like. But yeah, it's not long now. We haven't heard anything. I'm not even on the actual bloody Twitter account, am I? No. But yeah, no, it hasn't. Let's talk about this because this is new. This isn't a major thing here, but you go. It zooms up all the way up the tree. It's a rather interesting death animation, but it ends with it saying, "The last judgment draweth nigh." Shout out to Legendary Goji, who is the one that got it. Again, this was posted in the Discord, but not with a what do you call it? Not with any credit. So it's a good thing that they had it here, because at least that way we know who it's from. But you no longer get a game over screen, or by game over screen I mean obviously we get a game over screen, but I mean you don't get a splash screen with the words game over. You don't get one that says abandon all hope. You get one that just says the last judgment draweth nigh. Sort of ominous as usual. Moving on, there's not much else. There's a few interviews that have been done in Japanese that haven't been translated yet, but I guess we'll have to wait and see for those. They did win the DualShockers Game of the Show and even Best PC Game, which is cool. Yep, we've seen all the taunt things. Seen this. Oh, even they picked up on the Divinity statue, which obviously makes sense. Again, another taunt. They've added a slew of new taunts, which makes sense. Obviously, he's counting the enemies there. But if you're a DMC fan, you'd know that this is a staple of the series. They've also got the image here of those. Okay, all right. Here's the thing. Here's what I want to discuss. Actually, this is a good reminder. So I can't exactly remember which interview it was, but someone made the point of identifying that these are the 8 standard, and I stress the word standard here. These are 8 standard Devil Breakers, right? And Matt calls the interviewer out and is like, "Yeah, you're the first one to have noticed that we said these are just the standard ones," which goes to suggest that maybe we're going to get some very special breakers potentially, like some very overpowered ones. I'm assuming maybe we'll potentially get one as an unlockable and for post-game content. So for example, you beat the game on Dante Must Die, and you instead of getting just Super Nero, you get a Nero with you get a special breaker. Maybe you get access to the original Devil Bringer. There's more to these than meets the eye, is what I got from that encounter. I'm pretty sure they weren't asked if there were any more. Even if they were, Matt likely would have been like, "Well, we're not allowed to say anything just yet." But stress that these are the standard and that there's probably going to be more. So there's going to be more than 8, which is insane. Like to discuss the fact that you can now rev up the Red Queen whilst running, which is pretty cool. Very, very cool. If I hop over into the Discord and I hop over into the... Where is the GIFs? There you So this is interesting. Can I get a large screen version of this? The stinger jump is back. This was again discussed only moments ago. Full screen this nonsense. The stinger jump is back. For those of you who know what the stinger jump is, I congratulate you. It's simply put, it's when you stinger or streak off of a high ledge and they do that massive jump, that long ass jump. Just more animations here. We can discuss the fact that the breakers are now context sensitive. So, for example, with the overture arm, depending on where the enemies are will depend on what sort of attack Nero does. So, for example, let's say you roulette spin and the enemy is now above you, or an enemy jumps and they're above you. If you hit the break button, Nero won't just do it like a palm thrust forward, he'll do it up in the air to catch them out, obviously. And again, you see here some enemies are on the ground crawling, so Nero does sort of a ground pound with his fist. And then obviously you've got the whole, if you're jumping on top of an enemy, you'll break her downwards, and if you're standing in front of an enemy, obviously you'll break her forwards. So now the overture arm is context sensitive. I just like to mention that. Depending on where the enemy is and where you are, depends on the attack that comes out. I also want to discuss something else. Where is it? Where is it? So, no, where is it? I guess we can discuss this. There is now a different animation for air hiking sideways. As you can see here, slowed down. It's like a pirouette in the air. Again, it's just like what they were talking about when they said they wanted things to blend in seamlessly and people thought there's going to be no cancels. Now, there are cancels, but it's like little changes like this which make things look more natural, if you get what I mean. Because before, what would end up happening is Nero would just all of a sudden be facing another direction and jumping, which, you know, doesn't look too great. This is the loading screen here. I'll just show you guys this, if it will work. God damn it! Give me the full screen. So that's the loading GIF you get now, and you get Nico slamming the arm down on the table. Superb, as it says over there. So again, when you want to access the van, this plays, and you get this little animation of Nico here. What exactly is that smoking in the background? I'm not too sure, but the quality isn't too great, so yeah. But I would like to add, I believe this is the evidence that we have of why exactly the split what do you call it? The split command, which is Nero's version of the Helmbreaker, why that was moved to a backwards and triangle command instead of being the usual, you know, forwards and triangle. So Nero's got a new sort of dive bomb technique here. You're going to see it coming up in a second, where he does sort of like a caliber, as you can see there, but he essentially slams them straight into the ground. See if I can get that playing again. There we go. As you can see there. That wasn't open to the public. The public who played the demo, that wasn't involved. That wasn't included at all. Shout out to Insta60 for grabbing that. So that wasn't included at all. And obviously there were two different builds. There's the build that you could play at Gamescom, and then there was the build that the press were given, which was slightly updated, which is why, you know, the press had access to a move like that one, for example, the one that I was just showing you, the dive bomb technique, and they had access to the Buster Arm, which is obviously the Devil Bringer equivalent, the replica, which allowed you to do context sensitive like attacks on bosses, which is what we saw on the Goliath boss. Even in the Gamescom trailer, where we see Nero pulling Mario, destroying Bowser. But yeah, so there's more than meets the eye, is what I'm trying to say. There's certain things that people weren't allowed to do, I guess, because it was an old build, and obviously they give the press a better build because the press are the ones who are covering the game publicly, like very publicly, not just through word of mouth, but like they've got their own websites and videos. So obviously they want to give them something that's more polished, I'd imagine, which is nothing special. A lot of games companies, I'm assuming, do that very often. You know, maybe they were only able to get the what do you call it? The thought escapes me as I'm staring at this GIF. Maybe they were only able to get the older build up and running for the mass public. You know, maybe the newer one was like maybe only like a week old. Who knows? Who knows? There might be reasons as to why. But let's also discuss, again, as I was mentioning, this idea of having very, very fluid animations. As you can see here, this is the dodge. They're dodging here, obviously, but there's no dodge roll coming out. There's this giant fucking... Really? Okay, that's a bullshit GIF there. You probably see it better here, but as you can see, Nero hops back twice. Doesn't side roll, doesn't do anything like that, he just hops back. So... Again, this whole idea of having animations seamlessly blend in does look a little bit of jank here. Not gonna lie, it does look a bit interesting, a little bit funny, but you know, it's different than having the typical side roll. And it just goes to show the level of detail and polish they've added here. You know, it's fairly insane. Again, this is what I was talking about with the whole broken glass motif. As you can see, the glass breaks, shatters, reforms. This person got an A rank. Very stylish, very smoking stick stylish, or you know, as they say now in DMC5, smoking sexy style, which doesn't sound too, doesn't roll off the tongue quite as much. But I think I'm gonna. Ooh, let's not look at that. That will give you, okay, not epilepsy or a seizure, but that will fuck with your eyes. I'm gonna leave that off there. This was just a information roundup of everything that I'd sort of noticed. I want to thank you guys for watching. Hope you guys enjoy the video. And yeah, I'll see you guys next video.